Hi guys, welcome to another episode of X-Wing Flight Academy. In the previous episode I talked a little bit about some of the basic mechanics and how a turn works, and in this episode we're going to go into more detail of some of the more advanced game mechanics. So we're going to talk about stress, actions, obstacles, overlapping, combat, initiative, fleeing the battlefield, and talk about upgrades that you can put on your ships. So, starting off, we're going to talk about stress. I have previously mentioned about the maneuvers that each ship can take, and you have your maneuver dial with those options on there. What I didn't talk about was the difficulty of those maneuvers. So, there are 3 different levels of difficulty. We have green, which are the easy maneuvers, white are your standard maneuvers, and red are difficult maneuvers. So when you're planning and putting your dial down, if you put a red maneuver down, then when you reveal and perform that maneuver, your pilot becomes stressed because they're performing a difficult maneuver. What that means is they take a little stress token, put it by their ship, and if you are stressed after your maneuver, then you don't get to perform an action. And one of the ways that you can get rid of your stress, because it stays with you normally, is to perform one of the green easy maneuvers. So if you have a stress token at the start of your turn and you perform a green maneuver, then you get to remove 1 stress token and then potentially take your action as normal. And the white maneuvers are just standard maneuvers, so they don't give you stress and they also don't remove stress. So talking about the actions, I'm going to go into detail on some of the more common actions. I won't talk about some of the oddball ones, but some of the more common actions that you'll see on a lot of ships are the target lock action. So to perform a target lock action, you can check to see if your target that you want to lock onto is within range 3. So you just take the range stick and measure if they're within range 3. If they are, then you take the 2 target lock tokens. The blue one goes next to your ship, and the matching red one will go next to the target ship. And that is an offensive combat action, so that when you're shooting at that ship in the future, you can spend that target lock to potentially roll some of your attack dice again, but I'll talk about combat in a bit more detail later. If you don't spend your target lock, then it stays with you until you finally choose to spend it. One of the other common actions is the focus action. So if you perform a focus action, you take a focus token and place it next to your ship. And it's a bit more versatile in that it can be used for attack or defense. So if you're attacking, you can spend that focus token to turn any eyeball results into hits, or if you spend it when you're defending, you can spend the token to turn any eyeballs into evade results. Another possible action is the evade action. If you take an evade action, you put an evade token next to your ship. It is a purely defensive token. If someone is shooting at you, you can spend that token to add 1 automatic extra evade result to your defense dice. Now, both of those 2, the focus and evade, they do go away at the end of the turn if you don't spend them, so they can be a bit more useful, but the target lock does stick around if you don't spend it. There are a lot of other types of actions. Some of them are about repositioning your ship. So after you've performed your maneuver, you can perform a barrel roll action potentially, and in order to do that, you take the 1 straight maneuver template, put it along either side of your ship, pick up the ship, and then place it down on the other side of the template so that you get a little bit of lateral movement, which can be very handy for getting you out of someone's firing arc or putting another ship into your firing arc so you have a shot that turn. Likewise, there is also the boost action. It's quite similar, but you have the option of the 1 straight template or the 1 bank template, but in this case you have to put it in the front of your ship, so there's a little bit of an extra forward movement so you can get into combat more easily or get into range 1 if you want to do that. So one of the other ways that you can potentially not perform actions on your turn is by overlapping or landing on obstacles. There are two types of obstacles that can be used in the game. We have asteroids and debris clouds. If your ship ends up landing on one of them, or the maneuver template crosses and touches the obstacle, then there is some negative effect that will be applied to you. For asteroids, if you cross it and don't land on it, you will roll 1 attack die and take any damage that you roll, and you also will skip your action step that turn. If it's a debris cloud and you cross it but don't land on it, you will take a stress token, which typically means you don't perform an action anyway, and you roll an attack die, and if you roll a critical damage, you take it. It's slightly different if you land on the obstacle. When it comes to the combat phase, if you are on an asteroid, then your ship just does not get to perform an attack that turn. If you're on a debris cloud, you still do. One other thing that can happen, as well as overlapping or landing on obstacles, is you might land on another ship. If when you place your maneuver template, your final position would be partially on top of another ship, then you have to move your ship back along the maneuver template as best you can until your ship is just touching the other ship, and you have collided with that ship, and that means that you also skip your action step that turn. And when it comes to the combat phase, if two ships are touching, having overlapped each other, those ships cannot shoot at each other on that turn. But you can shoot through other ships. They don't obstruct. It is a 2D game, but it simulates 3D by allowing you to shoot through other ships, and you also can move through other ships. It's only if you actually land on them that you are considered to have collided. So talking of combat, I'm going to talk a little bit about how combat works. So when it is your ship's turn to perform an attack, you can measure range to all of the ships that are within your firing arc, and then you get to decide which one you want to shoot at. And then you'll look at your pilot card to determine how many dice you're going to roll. Your attack value will tell you how many dice you typically roll. If the target is at range 1, you will get to roll 1 additional attack dice. Then you roll your dice. You get the opportunity to spend tokens like target lock tokens or focus tokens to re-roll dice or adjust the results on your dice. And then once you have got your final result, it is set aside. The defender will then roll defense dice equal to their agility. If the attack is at range 3, they will get 1 additional defense dice. And if the attack is through an obstacle, either an asteroid or a debris cloud, they also get 1 additional defense dice. And they will then roll all their defense dice and can spend tokens to adjust the results or evade tokens to add results. And then you will compare your attack dice results to their defense dice results. Each evade result will cancel 1 hit result. So if, for example, I had 3 hits and they rolled 2 evades, 2 of the hits would get cancelled and 1 hit would go through. And then if the ship has any shields, each hit will remove 1 shield token. If the ship has no shields, then each hit will cause a point of damage on the hull, and they will draw a damage card from the damage deck and place it next to their ship card. If it's a critical damage that goes through, the damage card is flipped face up, and there'll be some additional nasty effect that is ongoing for them. One other relevant thing is which player has initiative in the game. That is usually based on the point value of the squads that they have each taken. If a player has a lower point value, they get to choose which of the 2 of them have initiative. Now, what initiative means is when setting up the game, you place the obstacles, the asteroids or the debris clouds. The player with initiative will place the first obstacle. And the other thing is when 2 ships have the same pilot skill. The player with initiative will move their ship first and will also fire with their ship first. So initiative can be an important factor in some games and some squads, and is important in setup as well. So one other useful bit of information for when you're planning your maneuvers is that if, after your ship has performed a maneuver, any part of its base is hanging off the edge of the play area, then that ship is considered to have fled the battlefield, and for game purposes it is destroyed. So you definitely don't want to do that. So one final thing that I want to talk about are the upgrades that you can add to your ship. So I mentioned previously at the bottom of the pilot card there are little symbols that tell you what types of upgrade you can add, and then there are cards with matching symbols, so you can add astromech droids to your X-Wing, for example, or put crew members onto your Millennium Falcon. And each of the upgrade cards has a little point cost that it tells you how much it costs to add that to your ship, and then they will give additional abilities to that ship that can be used throughout the game. So in the next episode I am going to talk a little bit more about some basic squad building advice. Subscribe to watch the remainder of the series. See you next time. Bye.